if life becomes just about hustle and struggle and sacrifice and work, you got to ask yourself at what cost. You're not going to become a better investor just because you read a book. There is no video or book that's going to give you exactly what you need to do to grow your money. Look, there's an article reconsidering 3 of the most popular financial books, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and Robert Kiyosaki. And, this guy, Paul H. Brown, wrote an article criticizing these 3 books. He assumes that all of the answers should be about investing in stocks and in bonds and in mutual funds, and doesn't feel like they go in enough depth. He says that Susie's book is the best. Is her book really the best? I mean, what does he say is great about it? Cut back, diversify, etc. I guess it's more robust than Dave's book, according to him. But my problem is that Susie really has you to think about diversification because it's an admission of ignorance. I don't know what's going to work out. Let's spread ourselves thin. Or that you should cut back and eliminate and not enjoy life that much and, get rid of Starbucks if that's where you go to have your coffee, or make sure that you're not spending or don't go on elaborate vacations. And it becomes kind of this playing not to lose game that I would call the financial conservative. This has nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with someone that only emphasizes, am I saving enough money for retirement today? And they will do that at the exclusion of almost anything else, whether it's enjoyment and fun, whether it's buying something they've been thinking about from the time that they were a kid. And ultimately, no one wins that game because, yes, you might be able to become a millionaire, but will you ever live like a millionaire? You might be able to gain $1 million in a savings account or in a retirement account, but at what rate can you take money from that? If it's 4%, that's $40,000 a year taxable. What if you're used to making a lot more money than that to even save it to get there? So I find of all the advice out there, I like hers the very least because it really has to do with just cutting back and those kind of things. She has a couple good things on how to view money as a form of energy and what we put out there, which gets you thinking more like, value creation. So this guy, Paul, who definitely has his biases, he starts to critique Dave Ramsey in a way that I actually really agree with Dave Ramsey. He was saying it's ridiculous that Dave Ramsey is saying not to put money in a 401k, even if you have a match, if you have debt that's looming, if you have credit cards that you're paying this interest rate on. And okay, I get that some people say 100% match is free money, but the reality is it comes with major strings. Like, when do you actually get the money? And if you get it before 59 and a half, there's penalties to getting to that. Not just on the money that was matched, but also on the money that was earned. It can all now have a penalty associated with it. And if you have this high interest rate loan, well, maybe it's keeping you up at night. Maybe it has you feel like you're in financial bondage, and all of a sudden that level of stress starts to impact your level of thinking that it's never about value creation and abundance. It's just about what can I do to get this paid off, but you feel guilt because you're not putting in the money that your employer's matching. And at the same time, maybe that same employer says you have to be there for 5 years before it's actually vested. So I don't believe in something for nothing. So the fact that people believe that there's free money, could you actually go to your employer if they're small enough and say, I wrote an article in Forbes that talked about you could get a match on paying on a student loan. There was a company that started to create a system for that. Well, maybe that's better than putting it into a retirement plan when we're at a really high level of, interest that's been earned for a long period of time, and we might hit a recession, or it might have a downturn. Or you might leave that job and not actually get those benefits that you're talking about. So if you haven't built up your liquidity and your savings, right, to handle financial disruption or financial changes or financial catastrophes that could come your way, if you have double-digit interest rates that are starting to loom over your head, I'm with Dave Ramsey on this. Don't go get some match in a plan that is usually underfunded, underperforming, with tons of fees, and that you can't touch till you're 59 and a half. It has people shirk responsibility. So one of the things he disagrees with Dave, and this is something I read when I read, Millionaire Next Door and maybe one of Dave's book early on in my life. It says over and over throughout his book, if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. And this just reminds me of being in a car with my dad, and I'm just starting in my business career, and I'm telling him, Dad, I'm going to work harder than anyone else is willing to work, because then one day I can live a life like no one else can live. And he said, son, I really appreciate the work ethic. Trust me, I do. He's a coal miner. He said, but you could never buy back the memories that you never create. And if life becomes just about hustle and struggle and sacrifice and work, you got to ask yourself at what cost? What does that mean to yourself? And you're bringing your best foot forward? Are you always exhausted? What does it mean to your family if you have one, especially like if it's kids or you're married? And do they start to get neglected or come further down the road? Or what happens to your health and your relationships beyond your family? Because if all you have time to do is work and hustle and scrimp and save and sacrifice, are you actually living a life that you love? Are you actually living a life that you enjoy? Or are you creating habits that start to own you? Because it's not like one day you just wake up and you flip the light switch. You're like, okay, I'm no longer just a hustler and I just work all the time and I have no fun and no hobbies. And now I'm going to enjoy life. I just don't think that happens. I think that you start to become habitually a certain way. Now, where I really agree with Paul is in Dave's book. He talks about how you can take 8% out of your retirement account and you're not going to outlive your money. Look, the Trinity studies out of Trinity University prove out, or even when we look at Peter Lynch and so many other people out there, they did studies that said if you take more than 4%, you're not likely to outlive that money. Because when the market's volatile, there's something called disinvesting. You're investing money along the way. Now you're going to start taking money out. What if the market goes down by 10% and you're still taking out a fixed amount of money? Now all of a sudden it starts to exacerbate or exaggerate or take even more out. And if it's down 2 years in a row and you're still taking out that money, it starts to kill the account. It kills the goose that lays the golden egg. So I agree. That's an antiquated philosophy. You're thinking that you're going to get a double-digit rate of return in the stock market long term. Well, that just isn't going to happen because companies go out of business, because there's flash trading, because there's a lot of things that occur over a period of time. And I think more like Warren Buffett saying, hey, if you think you're going to get 6 or 7, that's probably about the highest you can expect. Yet somehow people are still looking at, hey, you're going to get 10% because that's what the market's averaged since 2000 BC. Well, average and actual returns are very different things. It's like profit versus revenue in a business. Profits, it ain't what you make, it's what you keep, right? Revenue is your overall revenue is your gross income. But the problem with the gross is, well, what if it costs you more to get that income? By the time you pay for refunds and advertising fees and team and infrastructure, like it's a different goal here. What we're looking at is what is the net? What is the bottom line after tax? What's your spendable cash that you can have? Now, Paul, he goes after Robert Kiyosaki, says, He doesn't like that Robert says, forget about the stock market and saving for the long term. But I'm with Robert on this because the U.S. Department of Labor says 95% of people are not economically independent by age 65. It's not because of a lack of effort. It's because of a lack of performance. Or when we look at these pensions that these companies put out, they thought that the market would do 8.7%. And because it didn't, these pensions went bankrupt. Yet everyone's still relying too heavily on a stock market to get them there. What if instead of just relying on that, you started to build up liquidity, you started to discover your investor DNA. What is it that you can invest in because it's something you're knowledgeable about, you have competency around, it's part of your value system, it's something that drives you, that you're interested in on a regular basis? Or even before you invest, what if you just looked at how you could make more money and then what you could do to keep more of the money you make? Save on tax and get financially savvy there. Save on interest by restructuring loans or renegotiating interest rates or reallocating from underperforming assets that might not be earning enough interest to pay off higher interest rate loans so you have a guaranteed return versus something non-guaranteed like the stock market. What about investing back into yourself so you increase your skill set and your ability to deliver value so you can make more money over time? Like, these are amazing pieces. And really, if you go to wealthfactory.com/strength, you can start to see, what is your financial strength? Where are you at right now? Where are you exposed? What do you need to have handled so that you can have more sustainable wealth? And the reality is, if you don't take responsibility, which Paul did say in these books, they all took about taking financial responsibility. The context is, hey, if you believe that you got to live within your means, and that's wise counsel, Dave and Susie are pretty much going to tell you, hey, just cut your expenses and eliminate unnecessary expenses. But there's two other ways to live within your means. There's a way to be more efficient within your means. Robert Kiyosaki says he doesn't pay tax. I believe in paying tax. I just don't want to overpay or tip the government. So if you can be more efficient that way, you're going to keep more of the money that you make, and that's an immediate return. Or the third thing, which is it's to expand your means. What can you do to increase value? Serve others, solve major problems, be more resourceful. When we have defeatist statements like it takes money to make money, that's what people tell you that want your money. When people tell you it takes high risk to get high return, those are people that are taking no risk and telling you to take risk while they make money on your money, right? There's so many misinformation and notions out there where people believe that it's a zero-sum game for wealth. If one person has it, it's at the expense of another. It's because it's devoid of the rules of value creation. What if instead of just trying to be miserly and scrimp and save, you start to think about how you can help other people, support other people, take the best of what you have to offer and bring it out to the world, either as an entrepreneur working within the right organization that has a vision that you want to support, that does the type of good in the world that you want to be part of, that actually improves the employees' lives, the customers' lives, and isn't just trying to raise their stock price. Or on the other hand, what if you're an entrepreneur and you create something? You say, look, here's something in the marketplace that's missing. And rather than pointing out problems and complaining, you start to build solutions and creating. And as you create that cash flow and you create opportunity for others, you can actually bring more people along in this wealth game. I get that there's some people that are deceptive, narcissistic, coercive, that they're complete, psychopaths and sociopaths, and they have plenty of money, but do they have wealth? Are they enjoyable people? Are they happy people? Do they build a life they love? For you, it's not just about what you can scrimp and cut out. It's what you can create. And it doesn't mean that you have to go get debt to buy real estate. You better be a good real estate investor if you go borrow. But never borrow to consume. Instead, invest in what matters most, which is you. Create the quality of life that matters based upon who you are. Find out real financial philosophies that lead to prosperity versus just through scarcity by elimination and cutting back and only thinking of yourself. Self-care is important. You invest in yourself, you add more value to others, and you're going to build more wealth. So look, there's merit and pieces to all these books that are great. Of the books, I love Rich Dad, Poor Dad the most because it says create assets that generate cash flow. Build assets that generate cash flow. How you get there is your own personal path. There is not a one-size-fits-all. There's not one book that says, here's exactly how to invest. If everyone invests this way, they're going to be wealthy, because investor DNA matters. Risk isn't in the investment. It's in you, the investor. What are the right investments for you? The stock market's not for everyone. The real estate's not for everyone. Buying a business is not for everyone. But if you could get clear about who you are and what you can do to deliver value, that's going to be your keys to wealth. If you're looking for videos that are similar to this and want to go down deeper on this, let's look at the video that I did talking about articles on Susie Orman.